You've been told the story begins with perfection, with light alone pure, untouched, descending into form like a divine command. But this story begins not with light's dominance over darkness, but with a yearning. Before time existed, before words or form or matter, there was something else. A fullness, a vast wholeness. What the Gnostics called the Pleroma. This was not a place in space, but a state of absolute being, where every possibility already existed in perfect balance. From this sacred stillness emerged Sophia. She was not born in the way humans are born. She was an emanation, a presence of the divine, carrying within her the living essence of wisdom. Her name, Sophia, means wisdom, but not wisdom as knowledge or intellect. She was the living intelligence behind all form, the subtle knowing that moves beneath creation, like the breath behind every word ever spoken. But before we go deeper, pause with us for a moment. If the mystery of Sophia has already stirred something in you, some strange sense of recognition, some quiet knowing you are not alone, this is more than mythology, it is remembrance. So if you're feeling the pull of this story, help it reach others who may be ready to remember too. Tap that subscribe button to join us on more journeys into hidden wisdom. Drop a comment below with where in the world you're watching from, and tell us the current time there. It reminds us how far this collective remembering stretches. And if this already feels different than the usual, if you sense the truth behind the title, share this video with someone who needs it. You're not just watching a video, you're participating in a reawakening. In this unbroken realm, the Pleroma, all things moved in harmony. The Aeons, divine aspects of source consciousness, danced in perfect resonance. Each aeon expressed a facet of the infinite, truth, grace, light, and depth. But Sophia, radiant and luminous, longed for something more. She longed to experience creation not only as an idea but as an intimacy. As becoming, she did not wish to rebel. She wished to create, to reach toward what lay just beyond the edge of the known. She dared to move without her masculine counterpart, Theletos, and in that bold motion she fractured the unity. This wasn't a sin. It was a risk born from love. But love without balance can disrupt, and so, in stepping beyond her station in the divine symphony, Sophia fell not in disgrace, but in descent, a descent that would seed the cosmos with both form and forgetting. Her reaching gave birth to something unprecedented, the material world. But unlike the Pleroma, which existed in unity, this new realm was fragmented, imperfect, dense. Her unbalanced act had created a being, the Demiurge, a blind craftsman who mistook himself for the source. Unaware of Sophia's presence, he declared, "I am the only God," and began to shape a world in his own limited image. A world of law, hierarchy, and separation. A counterfeit creation, but here lies the paradox. Even the Demiurge's illusion was built using Sophia's light. Her essence, now trapped in the density of matter, continued to vibrate beneath the surface. She had become both the creator and the captive, the architect of experience and the prisoner of her own yearning. In the Gnostic text, the Apocryphon of John, Sophia's creation of the Demiurge is not told with anger but with complexity. She is not evil, she is incomplete. In acting alone, she severed the symmetry between masculine and feminine, intuition and logic, wholeness and division. The Demiurge, and the Archons he created, could only imitate, not originate. Their power came from imitation, mirroring the divine without understanding it. The world we know today, the veil we move through, is their construct, a realm of appearance, not essence. And yet, even here, Sophia breathes. Even in the false light, her true spark shimmers. Her wisdom, scattered but not extinguished, awaits recognition in everything that stirs the soul, beauty, music, longing, and the ache of love. Ancient wisdom traditions, from Egypt to Mesopotamia, whispered parallel stories. The goddess Inanna, descending into the underworld. Sophia, seeking her lost beloved through trials. Eve, reaching for knowledge. These myths echo Sophia's longing, the feminine reaching toward fullness, punished not for rebellion, but for daring to desire something more. But over time, Sophia's name was buried. As patriarchal systems rose, myth became law, and story became dogma. The divine feminine, once honored, was recast as error. The very symbols that once celebrated her, the serpent, the tree, the chalice, became tainted, vilified. The church fathers turned wisdom into silence and instinct into sin. Sophia was no longer a divine presence, she became absence itself. And yet, even hidden, she lived on. In the pages of banned texts, in the chants of mystics, in the visions of poets. The alchemists called her the anima mundi, the soul of the world. In Kabbalah, she took the form of Shekinah, the indwelling presence of the divine. In medieval Christian mysticism, she returned as the Black Madonna, veiled and powerful. The feminine could not be erased, it simply went underground. Like a seed buried in winter, she waited, not for revenge, but for remembering, not for revolution, but for resonance. Sophia's fall was not the end of wisdom, but its transformation. She became the yearning in every human heart, the unanswered question, the silent prayer. Her story forces us to reconsider what we call a mistake. Was it failure to act without balance? Or was it divine design? Was her descent a fall from grace or the first step toward the world's awakening? Gnostic teachers believed the latter. That Sophia's journey mirrors our own, a movement from oneness into form, from knowing into forgetting, from light into shadow, and that the return to wholeness is not escape, but illumination. We do not rise by rejecting the world. We rise by remembering through it, by seeing through the illusion, and reclaiming the spark she left behind in all things. So the story begins not with dominion or control, but with risk and love. A divine intelligence longing to experience itself through limitation. The sacred feminine stepping beyond her place to give birth to something new. That something was you. Humanity was not an accident. It was the vessel through which Sophia's scattered light might one day recognize itself again. The Gnostics didn't say that creation fell. They said it forgot. And remembering that quiet, tremulous act of turning inward is the first step in Sophia's return. It's not thunderous. It doesn't shout. But it is real. And it begins whenever we ask, in silence, what wisdom truly is. We live in a world that worships logic, action, certainty. But Sophia's wisdom is not found there. Hers is the wisdom of paradox, of deep silence, of the space between opposites. In her story, to fall is not to fail. To fall is to plant. A seed must disappear into darkness before it can rise. So it was with her. So it is with you. Her journey into matter, into form, into shadow was not a mistake. It was the price of knowing, and the beginning of return. After her descent from the Pleroma, Sophia did not vanish. She became. She entered the very fabric of creation she had unintentionally helped form. Her light, fragmented, embedded itself into everything, into stone and sea, sky and song, animal and atom. But most powerfully, she took root in us, in the human soul, in the secret chambers of awareness. Her wisdom, now dispersed, needed vessels through which it could remember itself. And so, according to the Gnostic texts, humanity was formed not merely as clay shaped by divine hands, but as a sacred alchemy, body formed by the Demiurge, soul infused by Sophia. She did not merely watch creation. She inhabited it, We became her chosen dwelling, the memory palace of divine wisdom asleep within flesh. But with this great infusion came a veil, a necessary shroud between divine memory and earthly consciousness. If we remembered too much too quickly, the pain of separation would burn too bright. So Sophia's descent brought with it a dreamlike forgetting. We entered the illusion of being only human, of being separate, finite, lost. The ancient texts describe this veil as the domain of the Archons, beings born of the Demiurge, whose role was to maintain the illusion of separation, not out of malevolence, but ignorance. They could not create new light, so they controlled the form they had. They built structures, systems of belief, power, and control to keep the spark quiet, to keep you from remembering. And so, the world became a mirror that reflects back only what it already believes. A hall of echoes. Yet, even under the rule of illusion, Sophia's essence flickered. It shimmered beneath the surface of life. Stubborn and soft, it emerged in moments of awe, in dreams, in beauty that made the breath catch in your chest. Her light could not be extinguished, and though the surface world bowed to kings and creeds, mystics and poets kept her memory alive. The Gnostic gospel hypostasis of the Archons described how Sophia breathed her essence into Adam not as a rib or symbol of subservience, but as the divine soul force. She was not the tempting woman. She was the animating awareness, the whisper behind intuition, the part of us that knew, even when everything outside told us not to. This was not mythology. It was medicine. Across the centuries, her light lived in exile, suppressed by doctrine, distorted by translation, erased by the institutions that feared her wisdom. The early church fathers, in their efforts to control cosmology, labeled the feminine as dangerous. They rewrote the story of Eve as disobedience, branded Mary Magdalene a harlot, and crushed the Gnostics who preserved the divine balance. In the Roman Empire and the rise of orthodoxy, Sophia's memory became heresy. But she continued in secret, in alchemical texts where Mercury was both spirit and matter, in the tarot, where the high priestess guards the veil between worlds, in the whispered chants of the Cathars, who believed the Holy Spirit was feminine, and that the divine resided not in cathedrals, but within the soul's direct knowing. Think of how many stories have been told where the heroine forgets who she is, wandering far from home, only to remember in a flash of grace. This is Sophia's myth, echoing through culture, the divine feminine lost in the world of form, awakening slowly through longing, love, suffering, and wonder. The forgetting wasn't punishment, it was part of the plan. For how could wisdom become conscious if it never experienced unknowing? How could light recognize itself if it never walked through shadow? Sophia's fall became our fall, and her scattered light became the quiet engine of evolution. Even today, you feel it, that inexplicable pull toward something beyond reason, the chill on your skin during beauty, the lump in your throat when love defies logic. These are not sentimental accidents. These are Sophia's signals. The divine mother within matter calling herself back through your consciousness. Each act of compassion, each question that pierces the surface of life, each instinct to forgive that is her stirring inside you. Her myth is not entertainment. It is instruction. A code written into your being, waiting to be activated by experience. She is not outside you. She is remembering through you. And yet, the matrix of illusion is powerful. The world has been shaped to distract, to seduce with surface, to reward obedience and punish intuition. It teaches us to seek wisdom from experts, to fear the silence inside, to confuse knowledge with truth. But Sophia's voice doesn't shout. It doesn't argue. It waits. It waits in the pause between breaths. In the pain you thought was pointless. In the story you were told was shame. Behind every distraction. Behind every hollow success. She waits to be heard again. This is why so many feel a vague ache. even amidst comfort. A spiritual homesickness. That is not failure. That is her invitation. The Gnostics taught that each soul carries a divine spark, a forgotten memory of the Pleroma, and that the purpose of life is not escape, but remembrance. We are not here to be saved. We are here to awaken. Sophia's journey was never about loss, it was about redemption, not through punishment, but through participation. She entered creation not to dominate it, but to sanctify it. And when we remember, we do the same. We do not leave the world behind. We see through it. We do not destroy illusion. We illuminate it. That is the inner work. That is the path of gnosis. This fragmentation, we feel the disconnection, the restlessness. The constant seeking is not a flaw in the system. It is the system, designed by divine intelligence to ensure that forgetting would one day lead to remembering, that longing would become the ladder back to light. Every sorrow you carry is a map. Every joy a breadcrumb. Sophia's light, scattered across time and space, is not lost. It is gathering. Through you. Through all of us. And when you remember, even for a moment, the illusion trembles. Because it is not held together by truth. It is held together by forgetfulness. And you? Simply by remembering who and what you are. Become a crack in its surface. A thread of return. Sophia never truly fell. She descended. And now, through the collective breath of awakening, she rises again not as a myth reborn, but as a memory resurfacing through consciousness itself. Her return is not a spectacle. It is not heralded by fire in the sky or proclamations from thrones. It is quieter than that. It arrives through a sigh, through stillness, through the soft ache that tells you something essential has been missing. For centuries, the world has leaned heavily on one side toward intellect, hierarchy, control. It built nations and machines, systems and strategies. But in all its construction, it forgot how to feel. It forgot how to listen. And now, as the noise reaches a fever pitch, something ancient stirs beneath it. The divine feminine is not rising to replace the masculine, but to complete it, to remember what was split. Sophia's current is not a rebellion, it's a restoration. The return of intuitive knowing, of embodied wisdom, of feeling as a form of truth. When she rises, logic does not vanish. It bows to insight. Power does not dissolve. It becomes tempered by grace. This is not ideology. It is inner alchemy, the reunion of two energies that were never meant to compete. Sophia and Christ. Wisdom and light. Feminine and masculine. Two wings of the same divine bird. Broken only by the forgetting of their sacred harmony. And now, as cracks form in the foundations of what once felt unshakable, her light begins to seep through. You feel it in the way you're drawn to silence, even when surrounded by stimulation. In the way beauty arrests your breath, pulling you into presence. In the subtle impulse to nurture instead of dominate, to listen instead of explain. This is not sentiment, this is signal. Sophia awakens through these moments not as a distant deity, but as your own capacity to love without condition, to perceive without judgment. She rises each time you choose presence over reaction, meaning over performance, not in the eyes of the world, but in the sacred gaze you turn inward. This is how the divine feminine returns through remembrance, not revolution. The mystics knew this long before psychology found its terms. Julian of Norwich, Hildegard of Bingen, and Teresa of Avila each spoke of a wisdom that lived within, fluid and powerful. Intamable by doctrine. The alchemists called her the mercurial soul. In Kabbalah, she was the Shekinah, presence in exile, awaiting reunion with the masculine face of God. The Sufis danced her into being, calling her the beloved, the face behind longing itself. In every age, in every tradition that dared to feel beyond the limits of orthodoxy, Sophia's light was kept alive not as dogma, but as experience. She did not need permission to return. She only needed awareness. But make no mistake, her rising is not gentle. It is disruptive, not because she brings chaos, but because she exposes what has been built on imbalance. When Sophia moves through consciousness, what is false begins to crack. Institution tremble. Roles blur. The false self, propped up by image and performance, cannot survive her light. And that is why so many feel lost now. It is not collapse. It is correction. The collective soul, long trapped in rigid systems, is reaching for something deeper, something truer. And in that reaching, the myth becomes real again. Sophia, long buried, begins to reassemble herself through every human heart that dares to feel more than it fears. This isn't abstract. It's intimate. When you grieve and don't rush past it, she rises. When you forgive the unforgivable, she breathes through you. When you stop trying to fix yourself and start listening to your deeper rhythm, her wisdom unfolds. It is not a grand gesture, but 100 small acts of presence. This is the new temple built not in stone, but in attention, not in rituals of spectacle, but in moments of truth. Sophia does not demand worship. She asks for integration, that the mind remember its heart, that doing be guided by being, that knowledge surrender to wisdom. Her return is not a trend. It is the healing of a fracture so old we mistook it for reality. And perhaps this was always her plan, not to dwell above us but to live through us. To weave her essence into matter so completely that the only way back was inward. The world was never a prison. It was her dreaming body. Gaia is not separate from Sophia. She is her, the pulse of earth, the rhythm of oceans, the intelligence in roots and rivers. When you stand beneath a tree and feel the silence stretch your soul, that is her. When the wind stirs something wordless in you, that is her voice. When the stars look back at you with familiarity, that is her gaze, remembering itself through yours. You were never apart, only asleep. This is why your awareness matters more than ever. In a world screaming for certainty, your ability to pause, to feel, to wait, is a revolutionary act. Every time you choose balance over reaction, every time you seek beauty in the mundane, every time you listen to the quiet instead of the crowd, you restore a fragment of her light. You become a node of remembrance, a vessel of reunion. The more you align with this rhythm, the more synchronicities find you. The more peace flows into your life, not because it's easy, but because it's real. Her rising doesn't promise comfort. It promises truth. And so the myth becomes map. The story that began with a fall becomes a circle. The descent into matter was not a mistake, but a movement, a spiral toward awakening. And now, in this moment, you are part of her return. You are not separate from her rising. You are her rising. Every moment of attention, of conscious choice, of silent knowing is Sophia remembering herself through you. The redemption was never elsewhere. It was here. Always, waiting beneath the noise. Her dream was not to escape the world but to sanctify it. Not to transcend the body, but to awaken within it. And that awakening has already begun.